Okay.
Might just be.
We will move on to 5.24, approve and sign the agreement between the County of Lake and Clean Lakes, Inc. for the Aquatic Vegetation Management Program for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. This was pulled by Supervisor Spatier, and I see we have Director De Leon with us.
I will apologize for pulling this. There's only one reason for me to do so, and that's, I think it's a great segue to understand the work we're doing for the aquatic weeds prior to having a discussion about the algae abatement program that's on the next item. I just think it's good information to make sure that we have right in front of us rather than something that we remember reading in days past.
Okay. Well, good morning. Scott De Leon, Public Works and Water Resources Director. It's kind of deja vu because I'm reading this memo in 2011. The board at that time challenged me as the new director of water resources to come up with a plan, and it's humbling that it's still here, and it's a testament to your board's dedication and previous board's dedication to this program. It is working, and I believe it's helping. The lake is cyclical, periods of drought, periods of high water, and the weed abatement program is important because it affects the use of the lake. We just had this wonderful presentation about tourism, and when the lake is difficult to access because of aquatic weeds, it just makes their job and everybody else's job a whole lot harder to make a positive spin on the recreation of our lake. So we have, in the memo, it talks about, last year we did a request for proposals. We've been using a company called Clean Lakes for many years. They are very, very good. They were the only firm to provide a proposal last year. We're proposing a 5-year plan with, every year we'll come back to you with that updated agreement based on the available funding and the need. So Clean Lakes has gone out. They've identified the areas that need to get sprayed, need to get treated, and this year's agreement is for $225,000 to do the treatment lake-wide. So with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Did you have any?
No, I just had a comment because I noticed in the memo, I remember last year we were talking about, the situation in the Keys, and they mentioned the geothermal, and here it is. I know that funding's used for this as well, and so just highlighting that because it was brought up, and here it is being used for the same purpose. So just wanted to note that.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate bringing this forward. Actually appreciate it coming off consent just so we can say this is a good thing. And I was happy to do the invasive weed tour this year, including the aquatic weeds. This is a serious issue. Only question is technical on page 1 of the proposed agreement. Shows a initial termination date of June 30th of this year. I assume if this is setting up for year-to-year renewals, possibly the initial term needs to be adjusted in the contract, and I wasn't real clear where the renewals got in there. So just a technical question on the initial term of the contract and how it actually gets extended.
So yeah, I'm seeing that what you're talking about. We're going to probably want to adjust that to June 30th, 2024. I would also suggest we change the commencement date to today's date. So that'll be June 13th. 2023, and we come to the board every year. We'll modify this as need and available funding. So we'll be back to your board, even though this is technically a 5-year contract. We'll be back to your board next year with the actual agreement.
Supervisor Spatier?
I'm glad that question was asked. I kind of had the assumption that it was prepared to go as soon as possible in order to be accomplished. But obviously, if you're suggesting that it might not get accomplished until after June 30th to extend it, here it's asking for us to approve and sign the agreement, and then it says fiscal year 22-23, and I'm kind of looking at our county council, if we need to say the new termination date or use both fiscal years within our motion.
So the fiscal year reference on the title could certainly be changed if the term dates under Section 2 would need to be changed. Your board can approve this proposed agreement with the changes incorporated and condition that approval to the contractor's approval of it, because as it stands right now, the contractor has signed off on this current version. But your board can certainly approve the agreement with the changes and subject to or conditioned on the contractor's approval of those changes.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize, I may have misspoke there, recognizing that the term is likely related to the fiscal year and the need to get the funds expended. Considering that 17 days, I may not suggest that we terminate it on June 30th, 2024, but perhaps perhaps make the accrual date deadline as the termination date might be appropriate. That way, the funds, the work that gets done after June 30th can still be billed and paid for under this year's fiscal year. So I'll turn to admin to see if that's an acceptable alternative.
Hand up.
Oh, Stephen's got his hand up. There he is. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hello, board. Thank you. The reason why I had my hand up is actually just before what Director just said. It is funding that is supposed to be spent by June 30th. It's a new set of funding for next fiscal year. It's a bad timing because of when the weeds are present. June 30th is when the contract should end, and accrual period, if it's for an activity June 30th or prior, it can be accrued back, and which is the normal case for this contract, which happens every year kind of in a very tight window.
So are you suggesting just leave the contract language as is and move forward? Okay.
Correct, because you'll get the same kind of contract next year.
Okay.
Otherwise, we jump into next year's budget figures, and unless we try to come up with extra funding for next year, we can't pay for both sets of contracts, because this is funding source, 3 different funding sources.
And I'm sure that Director De Leon will figure out how to make that all work.
Apparently so.
And I just want to add, I know that in describing this, that Director De Leon had told me that this is kind of setting up highways within the lake that come from docking areas to make sure that boats have a sort of pathway to get to the center of the lake, which then is deep enough that the aquatic weeds don't mess with the propellers. And as stated earlier from Director De Leon, this is absolutely something we don't want to have a reputation of the impact that can have on those that come to the lake. From a perspective of economics, it's good for us to continue doing this. And from also the perception of the environment, if those propellers start cutting up those aquatic weeds, we are only duplicating the efforts of those weeds to proliferate in our lake. And so we need to provide those pathways so that it doesn't continue to get worse and worse out there with the aquatic weeds. So I see this as having many bonuses. I mainly wanted to pull this so that we can have a conversation about it. But I approve of this contract.
Vice Chair Simon.
Just Stephen's gone.
He's still listening.
Stephen, if you're listening, just want to make sure for clarity, like we said, Supervisor Sabate pulled it. So on our memo here, it says geothermal and transient occupancy tax money. You said it comes from 3 pots. If you could tell me the 3, that would be great.
So the first one is actually ag.
Okay.
The agriculture department is whatever is remaining in their budget to meet their calculation for gas tax so that they receive those funding. And then it goes to marketing, economic development, TOT, and then geothermal. And then there's a backstop of budget unit 1781 if it goes over those funding sources.
Yep, thank you very much. Just wanted to clarify that because the memo said 2 sources, so just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Did you have something else? Okay. Anyone from the public?
Hello, Chair Pyska, board members. Just a quick question out of my curiosity.
Name.
Name,
please.
Alan Flora. I know with the drought and the low lake levels, there's a lot of additional vegetation around the shoreline. And now that the lake levels are back up, I was just curious if that vegetation growth has caused any sort of abnormal or unique problems this year over previous years.
And I would say not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Anything else from the public? Not seeing anyone in the chambers or the Zoom room, so we can bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, without any changes, I move to approve and sign the agreement between County of Lake and Clean Lakes, Inc. for the Aquatic Vegetation Management Program for fiscal year 22-23.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and we have a couple seconds.
Do you wish to take up 5.19 since he's in the hot seat at this point in time?
Are you staying for 6.7 in the seat?
I hadn't planned on sitting in the seat, no, but
Okay. All right, then yes, we'll do 5.19. A, approve rental agreement between the County of Lake and Kevin Soto for storage hangar number 1 at Lamson Field for the monthly amount of $300 and authorize the chair to sign. And B, approve rental agreement between the County of Lake and Kevin Soto for storage hangar number 2 at Lamson Field for the amount of $500 and authorize the chair to sign. Pulled by Supervisor Spatier, and we have our Public Works Director, De Leon, here.
Thank you. So the reason I pulled this, this doesn't sit well with me. It's a 10-year contract. There's no increases set within the contract. It's an airplane hangar, and it's $300 a month and $500 a month for another hangar. I'm not saying I want to make $1 million off of the rental, but it just seems inadequate. And as far as a rental for a 10-year, to anticipate that it remains at $300, I just at least wanted to pull and have the conversation. I'd like to know if we're, and I apologize, I did send some questions to Director De Leon a little late on this one, so I did not expect to get the answers, but are we doing comparables? What's the actual cost to us of having these hangars? Are we doing maintenance? Is there a plan for rebuilding them if at one point they're not adequate to remain? And just seeing at 300 and 500 and it being hangars for airplanes, that I don't know that I could rent a shed for 300, let alone an airplane hangar. And I just kind of wanted to, I feel we're undercutting ourselves, but at the same time, I don't know what the right thing to do is, and I just wanted to open up the conversation.
okay. This agreement, Mr. Soto was in partners with another individual on that lease. Mr. Lowen was a business partner with Mr. Soto, and Mr. Lowen is retired and wanted his name removed from the agreement. So basically, all we did, and we just took Mr. Lowen's name off of the agreement. So the agreement is the same as the one that they were in as a partnership, and we've just reassigned it to Mr. Soto. With regard to the costs, the county doesn't own a lot of equipment at the airport. Most of the buildings and everything are all on private property. These two facilities are, and it's hard to even classify them as facilities because that would imply that they have amenities. These are some pretty rough pieces of equipment. I don't have an answer for you for increased monthly or annual increases. Again, we basically patterned the previous agreement. As far as the dollar amounts, I think they're commensurate with the quality and the value of the building that we're providing.
Okay. And again, I don't know right or wrong, just wanted to pull it to see the rest of the board's perspective on it. I just know that it didn't sit easy for me as I read through this. So I'm okay with moving forward if the rest of the board is, but I definitely wanted to hear from the rest of the board.
What was the length of the previous lease?
I believe it's the same lease.
But it's
And-
starting a new 10-year.
We're starting a new 10-year, yes.
So was it,
I don't have the answer to that, I'm sorry. I get that if you want to table this, and I can come back later today with additional information if you wish. I don't have that presently.
oh, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, you asked my question, so, yeah.
And just a point of clarification for members of the board. If there was or if there is an original lease, your board may want to inquire as to the status of that original lease with, it was mentioned it was with the two partners, Soto and Lowens, because if that prior lease or original lease has not been terminated, then this may be characterized, the proposed leases that's being presented to the board may be characterized then as amendments to that original lease, and our office can work with staff with that in making those changes and reflecting those amendments, so that it'll be clear that it is an amendment. However, if the original leases were terminated, then these the leases that are attached to this agenda item would consist of new leases to be entered under new terms and under new parties. So that may be another point of clarification to be made.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your comments, Supervisor Sabatier, I truly do. This is my district. These are not plush facilities by any stretch. And so the pricing consideration, even if we updated it, I don't think it would be substantial. And if we are going to examine hangars and cost recovery and stuff like that, my suggestion would we agendize a separate item to do that and talk about all of these. But as to the item at hand, I'm acquainted with Mr. Lowen. He is retired, has some health challenges. Certainly his request to come off the contract is very reasonable. And I don't see anything unreasonable about either the length of the term or the rates being proposed here, just based on the fact that they're premised on a previous agreement. Mr. Lowen and Mr. Soto have contributed to our local aviation community. I think those contributions should be valued if we're going to be penny pinching any rents at the hangars. So I'm open to a discussion about airport operations as a whole at some appropriate future time, including any cost recovery or any cost adjustments we need to do for hangar rentals. But I'm ready to move forward with this today.
Yeah, appreciate you pulling the item to at least have the conversation. I think this is something that we definitely need to look at as we're trying to enhance the operations there, but, the work that's been done. I haven't toured these facilities to say, but I know I've been in multiple conversations as we were trying to set up the pilot's lounge, other things that have been done at the airport to help keep them moving forward. So I'm prepared today to support this as presented.
We have anyone from the public? Not seeing any. I would like it to come back just so if we can see, were these rates established 10 years ago? Is this, are we at the tail end of a 10-year lease and we're extending it 10 more years? I would just like to see what this rate looks like in context of the past leases. And it sounds like we have consensus for that, so.
And we need to check on what county council brought up too.
Correct, right. Did you look like you have something to say?
Do you want it brought back today or at a future date, the 27th?
The 27th would be probably preferable,
Yeah, I'm just going to see.
if that works for,
Director De Leon?
That's fine.
okay. Okay, thank you.